In this video, let's discuss IELTS speaking and what are the common mistakes. So 10 common mistakes to avoid. Okay, so this will help us to get a good score in our IELTS speaking. So what are those mistakes to avoid? First one is silence. So whenever the question is asked, do not give a long pause. Give a short pause. If you give a long pause, the examiner will think that you are not able to speak on that particular question and he will go on to the next. So different cultures have different attitudes to silence. But for English speakers, the attitude is one of near zero tolerance. It's fine to hesitate for a few seconds before speaking or between ideas, but silences of longer than 5 seconds will go down badly. Happily, there is a solution to this problem, and that's to learn some fillers expressions such as "that's a tough question" and "let me." So, if instead of giving the short answer, instead of giving silence when the question is asked, you can say that this question seems to be a bit complicated, or this question sounds to be not that closer understanding for me. I think I can understand this in a better form. So start with the fillers so that you are not giving the silence immediately. Once you are explaining this sort of a words, then you can think of what to speak next. So avoid silence of a longer pause so you will be asked to go to the next question, right? And the second mistakes to avoid is memorized answers. So the examiners are well trained. They can easily understand whether you have learned the answers or whether it is a spontaneous. So give a sign of spontaneity, not the memorized questions. If the examiner feels that you have memorized the question, he can ask his own questions to extend the time. The actual time is 11 to 14 minutes. You can take 10 minutes extra or 20 minutes extra to get the spontaneity from your side. See that you don't memorize the questions. Speak spontaneously. The examiner is very likely to notice if you try to recite an answer from memory, and there is a penalty for this. The telltale signs of a memorized answer include speaking in a written style of English, unnatural intonation, and the candidates attempting to rephrase the question to the one they want to answer. Any questions you try to memorize answers to are very unlikely to be asked. So it is much more effective to practice speaking about a wide range of topics before you take the test. So to see that you don't memorize the answer, give a tone of spontaneity rather than memorized or learned. So do not speak as if you have learned something. Second, overuse of transitional signals. What are transitional signals? So we keep on using on the other hand, firstly, secondly, even though in addition to, because most of the people say that the more the transitional words you use, the more the score. Use the transitional words in appropriate places as limited as possible so that it makes a connection. It does not deviate from the topic. It's helpful to use a fewer signposting words, like firstly, for example, on the other hand. But if you overload your speech with this, you could actually damage your score. Sounding naturally, not like a signposting robot, should be your goal in IELTS speaking. There are also many words characteristics of formal writing, such as furthermore, moreover, and in addition, that are hardly ever used in speech and could actually make you sound less natural if you say them. So, moreover, further, in addition to, they are mostly used in writing and speaking. The words are used like firstly, secondly, for example, instance, on the other hand, but, because these are the words mostly used in speaking. So, try to use less transition words, see, and then try to use the transitional words appropriately. Do not use inappropriate, so where you lose your marks. So get aware of this transition signals. Next one is parroting the question. Parroting the question means what? Now, for example, the question is asked, what's your name? So the question is asked, what is your hobby? The parroting means my hobby is. So instead of say repeating the question as it is, try not to repeat the question as it is. Try not to repeat the question as it is. Instead, put it in a different form, put it in a different paraphrasing form. So what is your favorite hobby? To speak, to say the truth, the hobby that I do it regularly is. That's where you can start. Okay, let's see. In the wild, a parrot is a bird that can mimic but not understand human speech. In IELTS, a parrot is a candidate who repeats the question back in a statement form. What is your favorite sport to watch on TV? My favorite sport to watch on TV is football. So this way of answering will lose the marks. As a scoring criteria of IELTS heavily rewarded those who can vary speech, paraphrasing the words, or structure of the question is fast track route to a higher score. I'm always watching football on TV. So instead of saying my favorite sports to watch, instead of saying that, I do always watch sports, but the favorite thing that I do regularly watch is football. So giving a paraphrasing answer without repeating the question as it is as the examiner asked. This is the fourth mistakes that we do, and then please do avoid this. And the fifth one is answer the wrong question. So you will lose marks for coherence if your answer completely fails to address the question. So that means you are not answering exactly what the question is asked. So you're deviating from the topic. Ask yourself before you begin speaking if you are sure you have understood, and do not be afraid to ask the examiner for help, but be sure to avoid. Okay, so now you are not answered the question, so that means do not give whatever way you want. If you can politely ask the examiner to explain the question, to explain it, but not always all the questions. Few questions can be understandable, not all the questions to ask and to get the clarification. Sixth mistake, saying I don't understand. Okay, there are much better ways to check for meaning, so learn them. You can use a straightforward request like, could you say that again? Okay, so don't ask, I don't understand. So use in a different form, I beg your pardon. Can you repeat the question because I don't understand what you said? Okay, put it in a different way. Don't rashly ask the examiner to explain. Ask as checking questions such as, do you mean? That shows you have at least partially understood the question. Okay, so do you mean to say this? Or do you have any other meaning? So do you mean to say this, or there is a different thing altogether? So this is the sixth mistake that you need to avoid. Seventh mistake is saying too much or too little. So people keep on talking in part one, keep it 6 sentences, and part three, keep to 6 to 7 sentences. Do not bore the examiner, putting a lot of ideas, and do not say very little. Okay, so a 6 sentence is must that you need to speak in the first and the third, and the second part at least 1 minute to 2 minutes. If you say too little, you miss the opportunity to show off your ability. So if you speak too little, then you are saying the examiner that you don't have much English language with you. So you are not the eligible candidate to go abroad. Speak more and then prove yourself that you can manage speaking English in abroad countries. If you say too much, you risk sounding less coherent and making more mistakes. So if you speak so much, you make a lot of mistakes. And if you speak so much, you also deviate the topic. As a general guide, answers of 2 to 4 sentences are fine in part one. Keep it 6. There are clear instructions about the length of speaking time in part two. You should aim to say 3 to 6 sentences after each question in part three. Okay, so 2 to 3 sentences or 6 sentences would be a good thing that you can use the sentences to speak. Seventh, mistakes to avoid. Eighth, poor pronunciation. The pronunciation, mother tongue influence does not matter in IELTS, but see that each and every word is clear, right? So you speak like an Indian, do not twist your tongue and confuse the examiner. Great ideas are worthless if the listeners can't make out your words. There's a good reason pronunciation accounts for 20%, 25% of the score in IELTS speaking, and that's because it's fundamental to spoken communication. If you don't have a proper pronunciation, if you're not saying the words clearly, speak slow and then clear. Let each and every word be pronounced well to get a good score. Before taking IELTS, you should find an opportunity to practice with native or native level speakers and get honest appraisals of your pronunciation. If they have trouble hearing your words, it's very likely that examiner will too. Okay, so try speaking to a person who has good accent, a good language, a good pronunciation. Get the feedback from him so that you know whether your pronunciation is clear. If he is clear, the examiner is also clear, then you get a good score. So eighth mistakes to avoid. Flat intonation. So English language is not the same language as we speak in mother tongue influence. You need to have the falling tone, rising tone, and then the same tone, stability tone, constant tone. Okay, so have whenever there is a full stop, have a falling tone. When there is a comma, rising tone. Stress on the few important words, few important sentences, making it clear this sentence makes a very important. Even when you pronounce words clearly, flat intonation will make it difficult to follow what you say. We vary intonation, pitch, volume, and speaking speed in order to maintain the listener's interest and direct attention to our important ideas. Even IELTS examiners who are trained to listen carefully to everything a candidate says, will find a flat intoned response difficult to follow, and your response may be marked down for both pronunciation and coherence as a result. Okay, this is the ninth mistake to avoid, and then have a clear and then intonation, have a falling tone, rising tone. Asking for the examiner's opinion. You are there to answer the question, not ask them. The examiners will politely redirect to question back your way if you try to stall for time by saying, I don't know what to do. What do you think? If you really don't have any ideas, just say, I am afraid I know nothing about this topic, and wait for the next question. Okay, so ask for the examiner's opinion. So just say, I am afraid I don't know anything, but still I will try to respond. At least you have covered 3-4 sentences. Okay, so if you want to understand many more mistakes that you do, please do join us, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what would you like us to post in the next video. View our upcoming batches at www.teach5.com or write to us at info@teach5.com. Thank you.